There's also, I just want to mention this briefly because this is another thing that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of, but just the effect of the one-child policy has been this, kind of a creation of a demographic hole also in China in general, which frankly, a lot of people that are looking at the Chinese population, they're just wondering, like, how is this going to be resolved?
It's not going to be resolved. There's no way they can fix it at this point. So the situation is that China does not have too many people. It's got too few women and too few young people, which is why they've gone from a one-child policy to a two-child policy to a three-child policy. And I'm worried that they're going to actually, just given their coercive nature, that they're going to start with forced pregnancies. I mean, that's something that I don't think can be discounted, just given the coercive nature of the regime. But right now, their population is heavily skewed towards the aging population. So their population is continuing to increase in number, but those are older people living longer. And even if every woman in China had 10 kids today, no, they're not going to be able to help all those men that can't find wives because these children are not going to be marriage age for 20 years. And it's too late to help the elderly. So I don't know what they're going to do. I think that this could be their downfall. That they did this for economic reasons, and also their workforce is going down. They're no longer, the place where you can get cheapest labor because the numbers in their workforce is declining. And there is a demographic in China that people don't really think about or talk about, which I call the invisible victims of the one-child policy, which is elderly widows. So the family structure in China, traditionally, in the beautiful traditional culture of China, the elderly were venerated. In the countryside, which is where my network is, they would have large families because they were farming. So that it would be a situation where you'd have one couple that would have a large family, and each of those kids would have large families, so that by the time that the original couple were elderly, they would have an extended family that venerated them because of their age and their wisdom that could support them. And now because of the one-child policy, these elderly couples don't have people to support them. And so senior suicide in China has skyrocketed 500% over the last 20 years in connection with the one-child policy. And China has the highest female suicide rate of any country in the world. And in the Chinese countryside, which is where we are, 3 times the number of women as men are committing suicide. So we have something called the Save a Widow campaign. That's like a sister campaign to the Save a Girl campaign. So in our area, where our network already is, I asked the field workers if there are widows that need help, and they said, yes. They're abandoned, they're impoverished. One of our widows was so poor that she didn't eat 2 days a week. All she ate was salt, and she had got herself a rope to hang herself with when life got intolerable. But there's a cultural shift that's because of the Chinese Communist Party, where instead of venerating seniors for their wisdom and for all that the way that they've poured their lives out for their families, now anyone who doesn't work is considered to be a burden. And also something that people might not understand about China, the communist country, you would think they would have socialized medicine. No, you have to pay for medical care. So one of our couples, one of the widows, I should say, when her husband was dying, their daughter-in-law came and actually started berating them and going to the neighbors saying, why doesn't he just kill himself, and save us the medical expenses? We're all going to become homeless because of these medical expenses. And then she pointed out another woman in their community that when she discovered she had breast cancer, she hung herself from the tree in the backyard as a way of saving her family the medical expenses. And that was considered to be a noble act. And that is the change in the culture in China. So we are going to these widows and we are just saying to them, you're a human being, you have infinite dignity, we care about you, and we're going to give you a monthly stipend for the rest of your life, just to show you that we care and just to help you, eat a little bit better or heat your little room in the winter. And these women are unbelievably grateful for this because they don't have a family to support them, and the government is not supporting them, at least not in any substantial way. And so we give them $25 a month, and we're committed to doing that for the rest of their lives, or for as long as we're around, we're going to do that and help these widows.
So I just have to say this. I mean, it's incredible that you're able to have this kind of an impact or from outside of China into China. It's not, China under the regime is not very open to having, let's say, external forces having activity in the Chinese countryside.
Right. So our network is very secret. The biggest secret in the organization is, where is our network? We don't tell anyone where our network is. My own board does not know where the network is. And our field workers are incredibly brave. Now, these are not, when you say outside, the money comes from the outside, right? But the field workers are people from the area. So it's not like we have Americans over there, and they have to
Someone might notice, right?
Right, someone might notice. Like people say, how often do you go and visit your network? It's like, never. Because they would all be detained if I went out there. The whole thing would be blown. People ask for pictures of me holding Chinese babies. It's like, well, I can ask a Chinese friend of mine here to hold the baby, but I can't go to China and hold the babies, that we're saving in China, because it would blow the cover off of our network. So, if anybody is a prayer person that's listening to this, please pray for the safety of our network. Please pray that God will continue to hide them under the shadow of his wing. These people are very, very, very brave, but they're also very committed to the mission. They care about saving these girls, they care about saving these widows, and they're willing to put their freedom and possibly more on the line to do this work.
And just very briefly, since we're here, how do people kind of, that might be watching, that might be interested, learn more about your program?
Oh, okay. So our website is womensrightswithoutfrontiers.org. That's womensrightswithoutfrontiers.org. It's a long name. But if you go on to my website, on the upper right, there's two buttons. One says Save a Girl, one says Save a Widow. So you can click the button to Save a Girl and learn a lot more about that campaign. Same with Save a Widow. And in both of those, we have a 3-minute video of the girls that we're saving and of the widows that we're saving. And you can see pictures of the actual girls and the widows that we're saving and hear more about them. I hope you would find it inspiring. And it is incredible that we're able to do this.
We were talking about 2008, and you were already active in 2008 on the China issue. Now we're at 2016. In some ways, many rights activists have been telling me that things have gone in the wrong direction, as you suggested earlier. A lot of people have gotten despondent and, not sure if there's anything can be done in the realm of China. And so, your thoughts here, and I guess a little bit about what keeps you going, because you don't strike me as terribly despondent.
I have my moments, and when I feel like, oh my gosh, this is just too big for me, I look at the faces of the baby girls and the widows that we're saving, and that keeps me going. But, I take my inspiration from Mother Teresa, and I worked with her in 1988 for 6 weeks in Calcutta. And one of the things that talk about a despondent situation. I mean, I worked with her in the Home for the Dying in Calcutta, and so she's taking individual people off the street in Calcutta and helping them, just loving them through their last days and moments. She never was despairing, because even though for every one person she picked up, there was a million more that she was not able to pick up. And what she said is, God does not call us to be successful. He calls us to be faithful. And so what I try to do is I try to be sensitive to the promptings of the Holy Spirit about what I am called to do. And then I just try to do it to the best of my ability. And I just say, I know, God, this is a drop in the bucket, and it's up to you. So that's what I do. I just try to be faithful to what I'm called to do and not look at the whole picture, because there are other people who are called to do all kinds of different aspects of this. So it's not like I'm alone in this. And you're here. Look what you're doing. But seriously, the Epoch Times is having a major impact. Who is the inspiration behind that? Who's the army of journalists? And all of us are called to do our little part. And if we all stay together, then I think things really can change. I don't think that any regime that is as evil and corrupt and no doubt hated by its own members can continue to stand.